this is Miss Squat, and today I will be discussing the evolution of insular dwarfism in Tamaraws. This topic focuses on how geographic isolation, natural selection, and cytogenetic evidence explain the evolution of the Tamaraw, an endemic buffalo species found only in the Philippines. Okay, so before we discuss the Tamaraw, let us first understand what insular evolution is. So, insular evolution refers to evolutionary changes that occur in species isolated on islands. Because islands have limited space, limited food resources, and different environmental pressures, organisms may develop unique adaptations over time. So, one common result of insular evolution is insular dwarfism, where large animals gradually evolve into smaller forms. So, did you know that this species only found in Mindoro, Philippines? Yes, the tamaraw, or the scientifically known as Bubalus mindorensis, is also called the Mindoro dwarf buffalo. So, it belongs to the family Buffidae and is only endemic bovine species in the Philippines. So, unfortunately, the species is currently listed as critically endangered by the IUCN with only 500 individuals remaining. So, most of them are found in Mount Iglit Baco Natural Park, while a few smaller populations survive in isolated areas of Mindoro. So, because of habitat destruction, hunting, and human activities, their population continues to decline. So, one important question is, why did tamaraws become smaller compared to other buffaloes? So, do you know why? So, scientists believe several factors contributed to this. So, first is the limited island resources. Since food availability is lower, smaller animals have better chances of survival because they require less energy compared to bigger animals. Second is the geographic isolation. So once buffalo ancestors became isolated in Mindoro, they evolved separately from mainland populations. And the third one is the smaller habitat space and adaptation to mountainous and forested environments. So, over many generations, these environmental pressures favored smaller body size. So, tamaraws likely descended from ancient Asian buffalo ancestors. So the scientists believe these ancestors reached Mindoro either through ancient land bridges during lower sea levels or by dispersal from nearby regions. So once they became isolated on the island, they evolved separately from other buffalo populations. So over time, the isolated buffalo population became genetically and physically distinct from other buffalo species. So this process is called allopatric speciation, where a new species forms due to geographic isolation. So as a result, the tamaraw evolved into separate species known as Bubalus mindorensis. Natural selection, yes. It occurs because smaller individuals had advantages in Mindoro's environment. So smaller buffaloes required less food and energy, making them likely to survive and reproduce. So as generation passed, genes associated with smaller body size became more common in the population. So how small is the tamaraw compared to a water buffalo? So the tamaraw is much smaller, standing only around 0.91 meters at shoulder height and weighing up to 300 kilograms. So, in comparison to our domestic water buffaloes, are significantly larger. So, the size reduction is considered as a classic example of insular dwarfism. So, we have another evidence from fossil dwarf buffalo, which is the Bubalus cebuensis. It commonly known as Cebu Tamaraw. So, it was an extinct dwarf water buffalo that once lived on Cebu Island during the Pleistocene epoch. It was one of the smallest known buffalo species, standing only about 75 centimeter at the shoulder, and fossils discovered in limestone cave and described in 2006 revealed that The species likely evolved through insular dwarfism, so a process in which large animals become smaller due to island isolation, limited resources, smaller habitats, and fewer predators. So, evolution begins with genetic variation within a population. So, the ancestral buffalo population already had differences in traits such as body size, metabolism, and feeding efficiency. So, some individuals were naturally smaller than others. So, these variations became more important once the population faced island environmental pressures. So, how cytogenetics help? So, cytogenetics is the study of chromosomes and their role in evolution. Studies on the Tamaraw reveal that it possesses 46 chromosomes, which differs from domestic buffaloes, which has 50 chromosomes. So, a scientist discovered that the Tamarow's chromosome structure evolved through Robertsonian and tandem fusion. So, what are those? Okay, so before we discuss about the cytogenic evolution of the tamaraw, it's important to understand two chromosomal mechanisms involved in chromosome evolution. So the first is the Robertsonian fusion. So this happens when two chromosomes join together at their centromeres, forming one larger chromosome. So as a result, the total chromosome number decreases. As for the tandem fusion, it is where the chromosomes fuse end to end instead of at the center. So this also changes chromosome structure and organization. So these chromosomal rearrangements are important in evolution because they create genetic differences between populations. Over long periods of isolation, these differences may contribute to reproductive isolation and eventually speciation. So for the evolution of the tamaraw, so the first is the Robertsonian translocation, which is a centric fusion between the river buffalo chromosome 7 and 15. This chromosomal fusion created the tamaraw's second largest bi-arm chromosome pair. So the second is a tandem fusion involving chromosome 4p and chromosome 12. This fusion produced the largest chromosome pair found in Tamaraw. So where is chromosome 4p, which is the p arm is the short arm. Chromosome 4 is one. And okay. So this figure is connected to the evolution because it shows actual genetic changes that occurred in the Tamaraw during its evolutionary history. So evolution does not only involve physical changes like their body size, it can also involve changes in chromosomes. So, the chromosomal rearrangements shown in this figure, specifically the Robertsonian translocation and tandem fusion, are evolutionary changes in the tamaraw's genome. So, because the tamaraw became geographically isolated in Mindoro, it evolved independently from other buffalo populations. So, over many generations, these chromosomal mutations accumulated and became fixed in the population. So these chromosomes changes contributed to the genetic divergence between the tamaraw and other buffalo species. So as a result, the tamaraw developed its own distinct chromosome number, which is 46 chromosomes. So this is important in evolution because chromosomal differences can reduce successful interbreeding between populations and eventually contributing to reproductive isolation and speciation. So therefore, the figure provides cytogenetic evidence that the tamaraw underwent evolutionary divergence due to geographic isolation and independent evolution. So we have here a diagram that shows the flow of evolution in tamaraw. So first is the ancestor buffalo population that that was isolated on Mindoro, preventing gene flow with mainland population. So due to the limited resources, the unique island conditions, natural selection favored smaller individuals that required less energy to survive. So over many generations, This led to a gradual reduction in body size, process known as insular dwarfism, which is the fourth one. Eventually, the accumulated genetic and physical changes resulted in the emergence of the distinct species, which is the Tamaraw. So that's it. Thank you for listening and see you next lesson. Bye.